Hey there, good day, good people. Welcome to this episode of MCM-TV. I'm your host, Leon Carpenter, and today I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bill Clements. Bill, thanks for sitting with me today.
Bonsoir.
This is going to be a fun one today. I tend to start with introductions, but you're here being interviewed solely, so we don't have to go through all of the introductions. But I do want to kind of rewind a little bit and talk a little bit of history.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll build up to where we're at now, and we'll talk about projects moving forward and that sort of thing. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Where were you born?
Battle Creek, Michigan.
So this area has kind of been home
Absolutely.
the entire time? You've never moved away and lived anywhere else?
Pure Michigan, as the
Pure
phrase
Michigan.
is. Yes, to coin a phrase.
All right. So as far as being a bass player and being a unique bass player, it wasn't always that way. You probably started when you were much younger.
Yep, 13.
You were 13 years old when you got your first bass. What inspired you to get involved with music?
Well, music itself, really. I think about the time, I didn't really embrace music until I got to be about 13 or so. And it didn't seem like there was actually an actual rock and roll station around the house at that time. I got a radio around the time. I just started listening to things. And then I had a buddy named Paul Samra who had taken some guitar lessons. And he happened to come over to the house to hang out, as you have buddies do at that
Sure.
point. And he pulled his guitar. I was like, "Oh, you have guitar lessons?" He's like, "Check it out." And he played the beginning to Pinball Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Holy smokes! That's not something that just the incredibly, British, gods can do. It's something that you just do it."
Sure.
And around the same time, like maybe 8th, 9th grade, and everybody also happens to play guitar.
Is that where you started? Did you start with a guitar then before moving to bass?
No, absolutely not, absolutely not. I just was very moved by certain music, The Who, Rush, all that stuff, and I was like, well, everybody and his uncle plays the guitar.
This is Zeke, everybody.
Yeah, and he's going to be making appearances periodically throughout the thing. Lay down.
So you started with bass right off the bat?
Well, no, I didn't want to play guitar because everybody else played guitar.
Right, okay, that
and
makes sense.
a lot of the guys who I considered to be wow, man, I was so wasted last week. I can play Black Sabbath. Those guys all played guitar, and I just couldn't relate to it. But as soon as I had, a little bit of a radio in my room, I started, finding things frankly, prog rock was the only thing that, The Who, yes, Rush, Supertramp even. Yeah, Police, absolutely the Police. Yep, thanks, Jeffy. Absolutely the Police. He was there for it all. My younger brother kind of saw Jeff is just younger enough than me that he wasn't quite ready to jump in at the same point that I was, but he saw it all kind of happening.
Right.
Me staying up, trying to figure out my generation late at night and stuff like that. So
those were your big influences in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
then,
absolutely.
the
Stuff
prog rock
that still. Well, like I said, you can either play guitar, but any band can only have so many frickin' guitar players in it.
Right.
So what are you going to do? And all the really interesting stuff. And keep in mind the alternative stuff to what was popular was Def Leppard, Motley Crue, the hair bands.
Right. All right. I think it's a good time to take a break here. We're gonna take a pause for an MCM minute so we can get a feel for some of his tracks. We'll see you back in 60 seconds. Okay, let's talk about some of the early projects. You've already mentioned your brother's here. I understand you guys were in a band together, but tell me about some of the projects you were involved with back in the beginning.
Well, I honestly think that everybody starts playing other people's stuff, but you still, ultimately, if you're really serious about what you're doing, what you want to play is the stuff that's in your head that no one else is doing.
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, if the stuff that I have in my head that I hear, if somebody else is putting out that record, I totally buy that record. But the only way I'm going to hear it is if I go to the trouble to make it myself.
Right. Okay.
And that's basically what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Right on. So you made the switch from playing cover tunes to original music. What were some of those projects? What were some of the band names that?
Well, the first one was Catharsis, which Tom, toss me that.
Look at this.
No,
It's over there. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, bring it right in. The first real project I had that was original was this band here, Catharsis, and based on the age of the LP here, you can tell how long ago it was. But that was recorded, about 6 months after I had my accident, actually. But I was I was in that band about 6 months prior to the accident too.
Did you always stay local with the music? Have you gotten out and toured a little bit at any point?
Well, the way I first got outside of Michigan was when I was the guys who were in this band after I was rather unceremoniously asked to leave, but that's all hindsight. All moved on to do other things. The guitar player, Nick, who's a good friend of mine still, was out in San Francisco.
Okay.
And at this time, there was actually still a scene there. The real estate boom hadn't happened to such a degree that if you didn't have a Silicon Valley income, that you could afford to find a place to live there, in like the Mission District or stuff like that. But anyway, so they were playing shows out there with their band, and Nick got in touch with me and said, "Why don't you come on out?" So we loaded up the Astro van, me, my brother, a fella named Mike Yount, who's a savant of drums, and our buddy Derek Metchinger, who was sort of our roadie sound man. And we just went out there and played a bunch of shows out in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and actually went over quite well. Some of the notable Bay Area musicians thought we were cool and were wondering when we were going to come back, but we don't have the resources to just sort of make a run of that.
Any of those shows memorable that stand out?
Oh,
all of them for me.
yeah. Well, I mean, we went out there with the attitude that we were gonna take no prisoners, and when you're that young and you're that full of energy, and we were determined, and I think we accomplished our goal.
Jeffrey was in that band with you.
Absolutely, it was just me, Jeff, and a drummer. It was a power trio. Yeah,
Wow, nice.
yeah. That was the original Kill Switch, that often gets confused with the other kill switches, which are basically one kill switch that
Lots
keeps
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly. Which versions 0.0 and all that stuff.
Let's talk about some of your equipment. So,
Well, yeah. What would you like to do?
well, let's
Guitar.
let's talk about some of the equipment to your left there. We got a couple of basses. One of them is quite unique. I don't think it's entirely in frame here, but maybe we'll shoot some footage of it later.
This guy here I brought out especially for this because this is about Michigan, and this is a Michigan-made bass.
Right on.
Made by a guy named Doug Jones out of Ann Arbor, a good friend of mine who, back about 10 years ago, we went out to the NAMM show a couple times and had some fun and kind of tried to introduce the instrument. He actually is one of those fellas that is a Renaissance man and has many fingers and many pies, and he's just focused on other things right now. He might revisit the instrument at some point if sufficient interest sort of warranted it.
Okay, great.
So y'all contact Doug Jones out of Ann Arbor.
There you go.
Jones MFG Music. I think the website's still up there.
What about the other two axes you have over there?
Well, that right there is the Bill Clements signature model from Regenerate Guitar Works.
Wonderful.
Yep, and that one right there is an old friend of mine, Marco Cortez, made that one right there.
Okay.
And it's I got a lot of guys who are believers in what I do, so they want to lend their energy to it, and I'm very grateful for it because Lord knows I wouldn't be anywhere without them and everybody else who sort of views what I do as valid and listenable.
Right. All right, and we're sitting here split by a couple of Blackport speaker
Yeah.
cabinets.
Michigan's own Blackport speaker cabinets, actually.
Right. Tell me what drew you to these here.
Well, actually, Tom approached me and said, we would like you to stress test these, because I think he was pretty well aware that I would stress test them in ways no one else would. And I have.
All right.
And I have, and I think that the R&D process of our relationship has yielded some very productive developments.
We've improved since we met you.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
Is this the cabinet of choice? I know he's here in the room, but I want your honest opinion.
Well, yeah, because I'll tell you, front-loaded speaker cabinets, they produce a nice sound right next to you, but it's deceptive because, as you well know, you've played around a little bit, what you hear right next to you is not what's being heard out in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever vanity I've had in terms of like, oh, I want what's in my ear to sound just a certain way, has always negatively affected the sound in the room. It took years of watching like all kinds of bass players, like blues bass players, old rock and roll bass players, even some of those heavy metal hairy band bass players, to realize that the low end is really the thing that holds it together.
Right.
So, and there was also a certain degree of vanity that I had in the like, I want all these noodly riffs I've got going to really cut through, and at the expense of the sound of the overall band. And I fully admit to being guilty of that, but I think a lot of people are when they're young. But bottom line is, what sounds good in the room, unless you're on a stage which is running a 3,000 watt PA and all that stuff. If your rig that you're running in the room is really your only recourse, and the PA is just vocal PA, then you need something that throws that nice low warm end out there, and these do.
So you've got lots of equipment here. You said that's a signature series, so there are endorsements involved here.
Oh, absolutely, and they're not big corporate types. I tend to find myself at odds with that mentality. They're guys like little 1 or 2 man outfits like Marco or Tom, or the guys out in Washington who are Mark and Rod at Regenerate. All of these people, I don't just waltz up and say, hey, I need a bass. And that's, I get a lot of Facebook messages say, hey, how do I get an endorsement and everything? It's like, I don't know how to go get one. I only know that if you do what you do to a certain degree, if it's meant to happen, people will start to approach you and ask you to like say, hey, I think maybe you could work with our stuff. And that's really the way it goes. I don't I don't pursue endorsements any more than I ever really pursued women. It's just if they're interested, they're interested. If they're not, they're not.
All right. Well put. I think on that note, we'll take another break for another MCM Minute. Here's another example of Bill's fine skills. We'll see you in 60 seconds. Okay, welcome back from another example. Let's talk a little bit about the press that you've been involved with as of late. I'm sure you've been covered for quite some time, but things seem to be heating up right now. What are some of the things that come to mind?
Well, I think it's basically social media has worked in. It's an odd conundrum because I really wouldn't have a social media thing at all if I wasn't playing music, because it seems like an oxymoron to me, social media. So, that having been said, yeah, the internet, and just recently, Both the big English-based magazine and the big American-based magazine have both mentioned me lately, and there's also been a pretty popular audio interview that was done by a website called Entertainment Drive-Thru. And the weirdest thing about that is they shared a photo, an old photo off my very, very first record, Underground Alien Bass, that you can still get if you want to go to cdbaby.com or anyway, the stuff's out there.
So anyway,
At any rate, and actually they used kind of a poorly worded quote out of something we talked for a long time like we're doing right now, and I made a remark about, basically individuality as a musician and trying to do what you do and make it a thing that people actually respond to without not making it you or compromising what you're trying to express.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really popular, and I think it got like 1,000 shares in 24 hours and stuff like that. So,
well, that classifies as viral, maybe a small outbreak. That's great. So what other types of things like that have you experienced?
Well,
You've met a lot of people, haven't you?
well, sure. The NAMM show is a trade show for musical instruments and manufacturers thereof and things
Sure.
associated with that. And I just basically get out there and what I call booth jockey, which is I'll get out there and I'll play at, say, the string company's booth, who's Callium Strings. That's my string company. I'll go there and I'll play for like 3-4 hours straight, and then I'll go over to Regenerate Guitar Works booth and play 3-4 hours there. And it's it's on the West Coast, so a lot of high-profile types show up there. And about 2 years ago, Stevie Wonder happened to hear what I was doing from a couple booths away, and felt compelled to seek it out, which to me is probably the most single validating thing that's ever happened, because if you understand the NAMM show, you realize there's a sea of bass, wizards out there doing their thing.
Sure.
So he came over and was curious as here's a guy who can obviously discern every single note I'm playing, but he couldn't reconcile the notes he was hearing with
technique.
how he was told it was being achieved. So he's like, how are you doing that? And I did my best to explain it to him and told him that he was basically a musical god and probably got a little gushy, and he went on about his business.
Right, and I think as anybody would, right?
Well, I told him that some of the best bass lines ever made came off off his left hand on the keyboards.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
true. The guy's brilliant.
That's a nice compliment.
Well, no, he's the single most relevant musician that's still alive today, I'd say.
Was this brief encounter documented?
Yeah, actually, there's a little YouTube clip of it before one of his cadre of security people slapped the camera out of whoever was following him around.
All right, let's take a really, really short break. It's not an MCM minute, but hey, take a look. This is Bill with Stevie. All right, see, he wasn't bullshitting you there. All right. Because with this guy, you never can tell. I'm just kidding with you, of course. All right.
No, my dad's a used car salesman, so
Right on.
I come by it honest.
Very good.
Take
Very
my
good.
life, please.
All right, so if I may, I want to move on to maybe one of the more sensitive topics, but maybe also the one that the audience is probably most curious about. You're a unique bass player. You play with one hand because you were involved with an accident years ago. When did this happen? And maybe what happened? Are you okay with talking about that?
Yeah, well, industrial accident. I was a kid working in a factory and probably not really too well suited for it,
Okay.
But yeah, I basically put my hand someplace where I shouldn't have, and things weren't really particularly set up very well to accommodate someone who was sort of a greenhorn in that area.
Okay.
So it was a combination of design error and, human error.
How old were you when this happened?
21.
21. So you'd already been playing for a number of years. That was obviously quite a few years ago now, at this point. So at some point, if you excuse me for using a cliche, you got back up on that horse. How long did it take for that, or what compelled you to adapt and continue on with your craft?
I just was not going to quit.
Very good.
I didn't have that. I don't have any back down in me. On the factory floor, between the time when it happened and the time when I got to the emergency room, yeah, I kind of thought things were over. But at some point on the ambulance ride over, I started to get a grip and saying, I'm not gonna quit. If I live through this, I'm not gonna quit.
That's fantastic. So, obviously, you're achieving great things with your music, but how has it also maybe helped you to impact other people's lives?
Well, the fact that this happened some 20 odd years ago, I've been doing it a long time, and it was back in, I'd say probably about 2005 when the bass community became kind of aware of what I was doing, and the videos and the magazine articles that have come out have sort of kind of circulated through the cultural consciousness enough to the point where, young people who have been congenitally amputees, being born without a limb, and some fellas that I know who actually have a good friend down in Texas who lost his arm because of his dentist. Because when he went to get anesthetized for a surgical procedure, they messed up his IV, and he ended up losing his arm from below the elbow from that. Oh yeah, that's right. Anytime you get an IV, and if somebody doesn't do it right or they put the wrong thing in there, you can end up in a pretty bad situation. But at any rate, he heard about me and came up and contacted me. So I said, come on up and we'll spend a weekend together and I'll try to show you what I can. He was probably the first guy that came up. His name's Pat Murphy. He's running around Texas, still being a good guy and everything, doing his thing. My buddy Ken McCaw from Toronto, who's a stroke victim, who had a catastrophic stroke that pretty much rendered his right side immobile. But he was an accomplished musician and probably a much more knowledgeable musician than I am, frankly. But some of his friends turned him on my videos, and he contacted me. I said, well, yeah, come on down. And actually, guys like that, really, it takes maybe 5 minutes of me just maybe making a minor adjustment to how they do things to get them back on the right track and playing in what I would consider an active, meaningful manner.
Sure.
It's just the difference between, you can see it, but then if you actually do it, So, and obviously the whole time I've been pursuing whatever inner musical demons I've been driven by, I wasn't really consciously trying to help people or anything like that. And I would be misrepresenting myself to come across as some sort of Albert Schweitzer. But in the whole scope of what I do, if me pursuing my goals help other people get to their goals, then I consider it a win-win situation for everyone. And I've said that before, and I'm being redundant, but it's true.
That's fantastic. Well, let's take one more break, and then I think I might want to bring a couple of the friends
The
and
crew.
relatives that are here,
Let's get
maybe
the
to give
crew
a
up
few
on
words
here.
here. We're going to take our last MCM minute here, and we're going to get some live footage of Bill playing. So enjoy this, and then come on back. We'll see you in 60 seconds. All right, we're going to try something new tonight. We're going to bring in some friends and family and get some outside perspective, maybe some history or some stories or whatever the case may be. We've never done this, so we're just going to give it a try. So first, please introduce yourself and how you know Bill.
My name is Herb Ledbetter, local bass player in many projects over the years, and I met Billy through the shows back early '90s. Met him at playing gigs together, and have known him ever since. And
Right on.
now we're very close.
How would you sum up Bill?
Well, he's a loyal friend and, very opinionated. And when you're a musician, it's like we were saying on the side and then some outtake stuff, it's completely subjective. So if anyone's seen Bill and knows Bill, much like the company you keep, we're like-minded and strong opinions about everything.
Wonderful. Hey, who wants to roast Bill a little bit here?
Good job.
Come on, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Jeff Clements, Bill's younger brother.
All
Played
right.
with him a lot over the years.
Yeah, something tells me that we could probably tell stories all night long.
Yes, probably could.
What are some of your favorite memories?
Honestly, there's a bunch of really off-color stuff that I could probably bring up. Being that this is the internet, there would be no holds barred, I assume. But honestly, one of the things that sticks out most to me in my mind is when Bill and I first started playing together. He actually did me a huge solid and actually bought me my first really nice guitar and really nice amp. I played on and through shit up until that point, and it meant a lot to me and still does.
So he's been having an impact on people since even long
Absolutely.
before
And
that.
I don't know if I would have found the fact that I'm musically inclined if it wasn't for Bill.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thanks for your input on that.
No problem whatsoever.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. You got a few things to say? Come on in.
Sure.
All right, thanks for sitting with us. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm James Powell.
Okay, and how do you know Bill?
I've known him over the years, just in the music scene. I remember seeing Kill Switch a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
and just over the years, just I always had fun watching him play, and now I'm just beginning to jam with him right now.
Right on. So you haven't been in any past projects?
No, just kind of new.
Just been friends all this time, and now here you are playing with him.
Yeah, I never thought I'd actually play with a guy, but it's just kind of nice to finally get the opportunity and see some friends that've been around the community for a while.
Right. And is it grooving pretty well?
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
Wonderful. Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
This is kind of a cool segment. I'm kind of digging this. Is it picking up, Tom?
Yeah, well,
Right on. You want to come in and have a few words? All right.
I would have to say that.
Hold on. Let me get you to introduce yourself. So
okay.
so next we have.
My name is Tony Thompson. I owned and operated the studio where some of Bill's material was recorded.
No, wait a minute. You said some of his material. I understand that these couple of jewel case boxes that just showed up is you're calling some material.
Well, I say that because I know that he's recorded elsewhere as well. So every Friday, barring a gig or maybe something I had going on, every Friday we just get together and I'd set the recorder in motion and it get it rolling. And
So the studio that you have, is it a private studio or is it a studio that's available to other musicians? What's
currently I'm in the process of moving. So when I get to my next destination, hopefully soon, then I'll be up and running. And I plan to maybe go a little bit more public.
Do you have a name for it?
Tomcat Recording.
Tomcat Recording. How do you-
THOMKAT.
Right on. Check out Tomcat Recording. Hey, thank you very much for sitting down with us.
All right,
and giving us
thank
your
you.
insight.
All right.
All right, we wanted to bring her back in a little bit because him being a bass player as well, he understands more of the technical aspect of what Bill's doing. Everybody shared some great comments on the character and his creativity and that sort of thing. So how do you feel about him as a bass player?
I didn't meet him till after his accident. And a lot of people think that his sound is sort of unique because of that, but I'm not so sure of that. I think he probably would have ended up as like more of a stand-up bass player because it's just more organic. It's more the natural style of the instrument. But like you were asking me earlier about Billy's personality, I don't think his personality would have allowed him to sound like Getty or sound like John Entwistle or sound like anyone or any of the stand-up bass players. Very proficient. His technique lends its style to Jaco. He's a big, it's obviously a big Jaco Pastorius influence. But I don't even think he sounds very much like Jaco. sort of a Jocko Billy Sheehan because he's very groovy, and it's just fascinating to me that as unique as he is, yeah, I think the personality actually comes through in his technique more than any physical aspect of it. It's fascinating. That's why
I agree.
he's the king.
All right.
You know?
Well, thanks for that input. I think I want to bring him back in here, talk about some upcoming projects, and then get him rocking out on
Great.
this upright bass in here.
Thanks.
Skinner. All right, Bill, come on back in here. We're gonna bring this thing to a close before everything melts down.
It's about to.
It gets hot up underneath these lights.
It does. All right, so the guys here seem to have some pretty nice things to say about you.
Well, they're great guys, and I think I'm totally comfortable being judged by the company I keep.
Wonderful. All right, so let's kind of start to bring this thing to a close here. What kind of upcoming projects do you have in the works right now?
Well, we've got the Bill Clements Axiom prog rock album Kickstarter project that's going to be happening here
Okay.
very soon.
Has that launched yet? It hasn't launched yet.
No, it hasn't launched quite yet. We got to nail a couple other little details down,
Right.
but it'll be
Okay.
up soon. And quite frankly, it's just about making sure this next batch of songs that I've got put together get out and get heard and get presented. And kind of, it's been since 2005 that I actually put out a record in a fully realized form. If you go to cdbaby.com, you can find the records I've done that are just simply for download, and there's a couple of them. But it's not the same thing as doing a full project that
Right.
gets,
I'm still a big fan of the physical disc. 'Cause you
Absolutely.
get all the artwork that's involved with
And
a
if
physical
the
disc.
and if the Kickstarter project meets its goal, we're going to do a limited run of 12-inch LPs and stuff like that.
Fantastic.
So that's also something I've kind of had an itch to do for a long time, is put out the full-on project with the, it's been a long time since I've seen a 12-inch vinyl.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
They're starting to come back though, aren't they?
Well, there's a number.
He's referring to.
I know, I was trying to deflect
Yeah.
that one a little bit.
Those 12-inch vinyls have never gone anywhere. They're still
A lot of the
there.
woodwork.
But yeah, well, it would work. But
Yeah.
bottom line is, the idea is to put together a project that gets fully released, gets to the people that really want to hear it.
Right.
Because
All the bells and whistles.
bells, whistles, and the fact that all my friends in India, all my friends in South America, everybody who is like, let me know that what I'm doing kind of resonates with them.
Should get a fucking Kickstarter program going.
I think that might be the thing to do. But at any rate, they've all kind of spoken and said, hey, if we just had some stuff from you, we'd be all about it. So
Wonderful.
we're going to deliver the stuff here as
All
soon
right.
as possible.
Keep your eyes open for that. I'm gonna bring this one to a close. I really want to thank you for taking the time to sit down. I want to thank everybody else that was here, especially having a seat and sharing some words. I'm really thankful for that.
Thank you.
So
My boys, I love them all.
all right, well, we're going to bring this one to a close. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Bill Clements, you can visit him on his Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Bill Clements. Once that Kickstarter project comes out, I'm sure he'll be posting all about it. If you want a little bit more about myself, you can visit my fan page. Just go to facebook.com/Leon Carpenter Fans. And as always, please visit MotorCityMusicians.com. You'll see other interviews such as this one here. There is a forum, there's a calendar of events, there's a YouTube button that'll take you to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to see the extended version of this crazy interview here, as well as other interviews for other bands. So for MCM-TV, till next time, I'm Leon Carpenter. Keep the music alive. Bam!
Dig that.